Greetings, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs. Today, our journey takes us to the heart of one of the oldest and most influential families of the wizarding world. One of the Sacred 28, the Malfoys. A name that evokes pride, power, and of course, pure blood. But behind these qualities lies a story full of sacrifices, traditions, and secrets that only a few truly know. The Malfoys are not just a symbol of wealth and power. No, my dear adventurers, theirs is a story rooted in time. And to truly comprehend it, we must travel back to the Norman invasion, when one of their ancestors, Armand Malfoy, a daring wizard, arrived in Britain alongside none other than William the Conqueror. Does that make the Malfoys blonde-haired Vikings? But the real question is probably another one. How can a family remain powerful for so many centuries? The answer is simple. Strategic alliances, cunning, but above all, an unstoppable ambition. Today, we're going to discuss how this noble house built its empire, with centuries of tradition, forged not only by luxury and power, but also by dangerous alliances and very, very difficult choices. Choices that pushed them to risk everything to maintain their place in history. So, are you ready? Battles, intrigues, and family drama, it's all here. May today's story begin.
At the dawn of the 9th century, the world of men was reshaped by iron, fire, and sails that cut through the mist like blades. From the frozen shores of the north, the Vikings, fierce witches and wizards, warriors and skilled sailors, swept across the kingdoms of Europe, leaving behind them a trail of conquest, terror, and change. Their knowledge of magic was unlike anything considered traditional or canonical at the time. Norse magic drew its greatest power from ancient symbols, used to amplify and alter the very core of spells and curses. The runes. Yet few speak of how these events echoed within the hidden world of magic. In truth, where Muggle kings fell to northern raiders, so too did ancient wizarding strongholds. In time, a new people emerged, the Normans, born from the union of Norse blood and Frankish soil. At the time, one of the most powerful realms in the world. Hardened by centuries of battle and diplomacy, they became a force both revered and feared among Muggles and magical folk alike. And so, by the end of the 10th century, the Normans turned their gaze toward the fertile lands of England, just as their wizards sought to expand their dominion and seize the ancient magical secrets hidden within the British Isles. But what history forgets is that among their ranks, hidden behind banners and blades, traveled a wizard of extraordinary ambition, one who would forever alter not just the fate of England, but of the wizarding world itself. Armand of House Malfoy, a name which, according to Old French, can be translated as bad faith. A skilled and ambitious warrior wizard, as well as a cunning military strategist. Little is known of how Armand first gained the favor of William, Duke of Normandy, later known to history as William the Conqueror. Malfoy. But by the time the English crown rested upon his brow in 1066, Malfoy's place at his side was already assured.
Welcome.
Unlike the knights and lords who pledged steel and blood to King William, Armand offered something far more valuable.
I bring you power.
Magic, and likely magic of the darkest kind. Whispers spoke of services rendered, acts cloaked in sorcery and shadow, unseen by the common eye, yet instrumental in cementing William's grip over the newly conquered realm.
The crown brings order.
Beyond the other pure-blood fools, too fat and too lazy to see past their own noses, Armand Malfoy knew he would claim his rightful place. In these new lands, he, like the entire Norman people, saw wealth and opportunity. In these lands, he envisioned a prosperous future for his dynasty, a dynasty of such prestige and power that it would be forever remembered and feared in the wizarding world. The name Malfoy was never to be forgotten at any cost.
For your loyalty.
In return for these secret deeds, the king rewarded the wizard with a vast and fertile estate in Wiltshire, torn from the hands of the vanquished. There, far from the prying eyes of the Muggle court, Armand Malfoy planted the roots of a legacy that would endure for centuries. one built upon ambition, cunning, and an unwavering belief in the superiority of wizard kind. Over the generations, Slytherin pride firmly established the Malfoy family as synonymous not only with wealth and wizarding prowess, but with an unshakable belief in their own superiority. They rose swiftly, weaving themselves into the very fabric of power, and not merely in the hidden halls of magic. In those centuries, the Malfoys moved with ease through the courts and salons of Muggle nobility, wearing fine silks and false smiles. To the unsuspecting eyes of England's elite, they were patrons, scholars, and landed gentry. But in truth, every handshake, every whispered conversation, every glass raised in toast was another calculated step. The Malfoys knew that real power was not won with spells alone, but through influence, wealth, and the slow, patient strangling of rivals with silken cords. Whispers still linger in the dusty corners of history that the first Lucius Malfoy, ambitious beyond measure, dared to set his sights upon no less a prize than the Virgin Queen herself, Elizabeth I.
What is your intent?
Though later generations of the family would hotly deny such scandalous claims, wizarding historians have not been so easily convinced. Some allege that Elizabeth's famed refusal to marry was not a choice of virtue or strategy, but the lingering effect of a powerful jinx woven by a slighted Malfoy hand. A wound to pride, perhaps, but a testament to the dynasty's gift
Wear your crown alone,
for ambition without shame.
Majesty.
Did you know that exclusive Spellbook Chronicles booklets are now available? Ancient volumes filled with secrets just like the ones hidden in the restricted section. But instead of hiding from Madame Pince, all you need is a click. This Muggle technology is amazing. Each booklet contains one of the most beloved stories from the series, enriched with exclusive images. So, what are you waiting for? Start collecting them all. Your support is invaluable. Not only will you enjoy the magic, but you'll also be supporting the channel, allowing us to keep bringing you the most amazing stories, like the one in this episode. So, enjoy the show.
As the decades marched onward, the family's estate in Wiltshire grew vast and impenetrable, swallowing up the lands of neighboring Muggle families like a serpent coiling around its prey. Gold and silver flowed into Malfoy coffers, not conjured, but seized through clever dealings and an unerring instinct for exploiting the weaknesses of those without magic to shield them. It was during this golden ascent that a new venture took root.
Welcome.
What began as a modest private collection of potions and fine brews, hoarded by a particularly enterprising ancestor, soon evolved into a thriving business. Among their many ventures, the Malfoy Apothecary rose to prominence, dealing in rare elixirs and notably a superior red wine. A name that, with typical Malfoy subtlety, hinted at the precious purity they held so dear.
We celebrate.
Their fortune became not merely a measure of their success, but a fortress, a gleaming testament to their belief that blood, wealth, and power were the only currencies that truly mattered. But after years of tensions and disputes, the year of change finally arrived in the wizarding world. It was 1692, and the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy had been definitively approved as a strict mandate. From that moment on, no Muggle was ever to come into contact with, or even learn of, the existence of the wizarding world. All they would remember in time would simply fade away over the centuries, blending into legends, unsolved mysteries, and children's fairy tales. Yet no empire stands unchanged by the tides of history. When the Ministry of Magic decreed the creation of a boundary that would forever and irrevocably divide the two worlds, the Malfoys fought fiercely against it.
Nonsense.
To sever their carefully cultivated ties to Muggle high society was, to them, a sacrilege, a loss of influence they were unwilling to accept. But survival, as ever, demanded adaptability.
My lord.
When it became clear that opposition was futile, the House of Malfoy pivoted with characteristic ruthlessness, reinventing themselves as champions of wizarding purity. They erased the past, with the ease of a master spellcaster, wiping clean a slate.
Be gone.
No longer the charming lords and ladies who had once dined at the tables of Muggle kings and queens.
Filthy muggle.
No, the Malfoys now presented themselves as paragons of untouched bloodlines, loudly denying that they had ever lowered themselves to such company. Muggles and their filthy mudblood offspring would become the scapegoats, the necessary enemy. The lamb they had so carefully nurtured over the centuries was finally ready for the slaughter. With the world of Muggles firmly walled off and wizard-kind drawing tighter behind its veil of secrecy, the Malfoys did what they had always done best: adapt and thrive. No longer able to exert influence through the courts of mortal kings, they turned their gaze inward, setting their sights upon the halls of magical governance. The newly established British Ministry of Magic became their hunting ground. Though no Malfoy ever stooped to openly campaign for the title of minister, a position as ostentatious as it was burdensome, their gold flowed like a river beneath the surface of politics. Elections were quietly financed, opponents discreetly hexed, and policies bent to favor those who understood which side their bread was buttered on. Real power, after all, did not wear a public face. It moved unseen, whispered in ears, and weighed heavy in unseen ledgers. Among the darker and more curious tales of the time, the name of Nicholas Malfoy looms large. A landowner during the 14th century, Nicholas was said to have rid himself of troublesome Muggle tenants by orchestrating deaths blamed on the Black Death itself. No proof ever reached the Wizards' Council, of course, yet, despite the passing of centuries, it seems that no amount of gold was ever quite enough to erase such rumors entirely. In the twilight years of the 18th century, the then head of the family, Septimus Malfoy, rose to prominence. His influence was so suffocating that many believed the Minister for Magic at the time, Unctuous Osbert, to be little more than his mouthpiece, a puppet whose loyalties were bought, not earned.
It suits you.
Even in more modern times, the Malfoy legacy of subtle corruption persisted. Abraxas Malfoy, an elegant and ruthless figure, was widely suspected of orchestrating the downfall of the first Muggle-born Minister for Magic, Nobby Leach, whose appointment in 1962 had prompted the resignation of many of the Wiesengarmot's elder members in protest. A few years later, Leach resigned under mysterious circumstances. As always, no guilt was proven. As always, the prestigious House of Malfoy remained untouchable. And so, in the late 19th century, the Malfoy family cemented their status as one of the most powerful and influential bloodlines in the wizarding world, securing a place among the so-called Sacred 28, the last remaining pure-blood families recognized by the ministry. However, their ideology and fierce anti-Muggle stance set them apart from the more ancient, powerful, and fanatical houses of the wizarding world, such as the Blacks, the Lestranges, and the Gaunts, who were driven by a purist zeal that bordered on madness, willing to sacrifice everything for the preservation of a perfect bloodline, even at the cost of their own genetic health. The Malfoys, however, knew that true superiority was not inbred. It was forged through wealth and power. Their pragmatic stance on marriage, while often criticized by purists, did not stop them from receiving the respect and admiration of such families. After all, their riches and influence were far too tempting for even the most ideologically rigid to ignore.
And so, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs, we have traveled through time to uncover the roots of the Malfoy family, from medieval battles to the modern rivalries that still define their fate. A name that has left a profound mark on the history of the wizarding world, always between light and shadow, between nobility and tradition. But like every family, the Malfoys have their difficulties and divisions too. And like every ancient house, they are forced to confront the weight of their name. But now, let's take a moment to relax. And if you'd like, you can join me at the Three Broomsticks for a nice chilled mug of butterbeer. Maybe a couple. Let's make it 3. Farewell, my faithful viewers. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because I am always here, ready to await you for the next new exciting adventure.